Hello everybody, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. If you saw a recent video where I kind of described how to use Colourarte resin pigments or Bling It pigments to make these glass stones or make alcohol inks and then color these glass stones, I mentioned that I had two of these little Texas projects that I was going to work on. One of them on a white background, which we're going to do today, and then another one on a black background. So I have already put a flood coat of resin on the Texas and torched it. And I deliberately let my epoxy set up a little bit because I'm using stone coat, and stone coat is a little bit of a thinner viscosity. So I want to allow for, ongoing movement in the resin. So I'm going to go over the colors I'm going to be using today, and I have a little bit of clear left, so I'm just going to put that in one of these cups here. So all of the colors that I'm using today come from a Bling It, one of the Bling It sets. There's two recent ones. Most of the ones from today are from the Glasswings set, but one of them is from two of them, so equal. Two of them are from Glasswings and two of them are from Ancient Treasures. So I'm going to show you what they look like, and then we're going to get started. There is one that is a Resinart pigment, or Resinart, pigment. So that one is called Seafoam. Let me show you these colors. I forgot to put my extra light on. Really beautiful. Let me just take these gloves off in a minute. Put the extra light on. The last time I put the extra light on, it reacted to this other light. It was really strange. And it was in one of my swipes. Yikes, sorry. It was in one of my swipe videos, and it caused it to look kind of hazy. So I'm not sure about that. Now I'm a little gun shy of my little extra light. So hopefully you guys can see okay. So next color is from the Glasswings set, and it's called, appropriately, Glasswings. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful color. And next color from that set also is Oasis. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous color. And then the final two are from the Ancient Treasures set. So this is Milky Way. Super beautiful. And then this is Solar Flare. It's like magic. Look at that. Just looks like you hit the jackpot. So, like I said, I deliberately let it set up a little bit. I have my base coat of epoxy on. I have my heat gun in here with me. I'm going to go ahead and lay the color down, and then we're going to move the color around with the heat gun. I accidentally mixed up a little bit too much Oasis, and I made it pretty dark. So I'm going to start with Oasis, so that way I kind of know where to go from there. And don't worry if it's too straight line when you put it down, because we're going to move it around. So don't worry. I'm going to come up here and let it be at the edge. It's a beautiful color. And normally when I do these, I use faux Rizzle because it has a little bit of a thicker viscosity. I don't know if that's supposed to be thinner or thicker, but anyway, it's thicker. And Stone Coat is probably my favorite resin. I love the way it reacts, and I love the way it interacts with other colors when it starts to mix together. My only contention is when you're doing a resin project where you kind of want some of your stuff to stay put, you're going to have to let it set up a little bit with Stone Coat. So this is the Seafoam. The reason I'm putting this here is because I got some of the Oasis right here. So I'm just trying to use a complementary color because it's probably going to show a little bit. So I'm going to put Seafoam kind of over here. There's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to this. When I first did one of these, a sweet friend of mine asked if my husband or I could do something, and she showed me a picture. So I had an idea what I was kind of working with, you know. But this one, I'm just kind of going where I might want the color and kind of getting an idea of how these colors might flow together. I originally thought about just using this Oasis as an accent color, and now it's going to be a main color because I mixed a lot of it. But my original thought was around the Glasswings and the seafoam color. So what I'm going to do is put the Oasis kind of heavy in a couple of places, and then kind of go around it. So my idea for the dark colored base one is to use some of the gold colors in the Ancient Treasure set because they're so beautiful, with some rich Crimson Lust, which is in that set as well. Beautiful, beautiful red. And some of the deeper resin art pigments like pomegranate. I might use salted caramel. I'm not sure yet. So stay tuned for that one. That one, I don't know when I'm going to do it. It may not be like right after this one, just because not everybody who follows the channel is interested in resin art. But, and you know, this may not be your bag if you don't live in Texas. You know, you might be like, whoopity-doo, I don't live there. But Texas has kind of a cool shape. And here in Texas, everybody likes their Texas crafts. So let me put this aside for a second. And let's introduce a little bit of this peach color, the Glasswings color. I'm going to put it next to the blue in some places. It's such a gorgeous color, you guys. And I'm going to put it here. And I'm trying to be neat, but I am crisscrossing in some places with other colors. Now I have enough resin to cover this. I don't know if I have enough resin to do beautiful, perfect, clean lines. So I might squeeze my cup and just do this instead, so I can maybe control the flow a little bit. And if I start to run out and I don't have enough mixed up, then we'll just heat some of this up and it will help compensate a little bit. Okay. Because we can always move it around that way. Okay, let's see. If you can hear some squeaky weird noise, I have a tumbler in there turning, so that is probably what you are hearing. Some of this is probably going to go over the edge, so I'm not very concerned about that. Let's see. Where can we put some more of this Oasis? Well, we could fill in that gap I left right here. Sorry about my arm, y'all. And I'm not sure yet where else. And I'm going to put some of this solar flare in a couple of places. Probably going to put it right next to this peach. But I want it to be an accent. I don't want it to be the main color. And it's so bright and delicious that you don't necessarily want it to take away from everything, but you don't want to fail to put it in somewhere. And next to the peach, it can blend a little bit if it needs to, and it will be okay. I keep saying peach. It's called Glasswing, but I'm very focused, and so I almost dropped one of them. So the stone colors I have I have the Glasswing color, and I have Indian Spice, which is a goldish color, and I have kind of the sea foam, and I mixed it with some previously mixed up like mint green type colors that I had. So pretty excited about that. So before we apply our stones, we need to heat this up and move it around, and we need to let this kind of set up a little bit because you don't want the stones to start swimming around in epoxy. So we are almost out of Oasis and we're almost out of Solar Flare. I have a lot of the sea foam left, and it's a very subtle color that can easily mix with some other colors. So let me put sea foam over here. And when you see some of these big bubbles, it's because I just mixed the pigment in, so we'll pop them, don't worry. Let's see. This is a really pretty color scheme, I think. I'm excited to see what happens with the darker one too. Yikes, did y'all see that mess I just made? Okay, let's see. Let's get these edges that are kind of complicated. I don't worry too much about covering the edges. This is a 11 by 12 MDF, and like I said, I don't worry too much about covering the edges because they're not really gonna show as it's on the wall. I used to kind of worry about it, and now I realized it's just really not important, and so I don't lose a lot of sleep over the edges anymore. All right, let's introduce, there's still a little bit of that left where we need to fill in. So let's put a little bit more of the Solar Flare in a couple of places. Like for here. Sorry, that's my refrigerator. And down here. And then we're gonna put the Milky Way in and kind of fill in some gaps. And I'm gonna put some of this over here. And the reason why I have most of my lines kind of going in one direction is because when we move it around, it has kind of an intentional flow. If you kind of go this way and that way and you start moving it around with your heat gun, it's going to kind of go crisscross applesauce on you, and that's not the look I'm going for. If that's the look you're going for, then that's cool, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to finish up this Solar Flare right here. Might be just a little bit more left. Put it right over here. It's so pretty. I love it. Over here it's going to mix a little bit with the Glasswings, but that's okay. All right. Now, still in a couple places where we could stand to have a little more Glasswings. Okay, now I'm realizing we're going to have plenty of epoxy, so I'm no longer worried. I am, however, making a giant mess. I should have put the Milky Way right there. Let's play around with the Milky Way for a minute. Instead of finishing what's in my cups, I probably should get all the colors represented first, huh? All right. Beautiful. Since I spilled the Glasswings there, we'll put this down because that won't hurt anything if that shows through there. Okay, we still have plenty of resin to fill a couple places, so I'm just generously putting the Milky Way down where we have some negative space. And then I'll actually probably go in over some colors. Like this has too much of the Glasswings in one section, so I'm going to mute it a little bit by putting the Milky Way there. I'll also put the Milky Way directly over some of the other spaces too, and that will be very good. So I have a little bit of Oasis left. So I'm going to fill it in some places where we have some room. I'm going to try to just use up all the resin. That may be lofty thinking, but I always try to mix up just enough where I don't have too much extra, because then I have to go find a mold or something. I mean, I'm not going to waste it. I'll either put it in a jewelry mold or I'll, you know, do something with it. I'm not going to waste it, but I try to eyeball it where I have just enough, but plenty to work with, because you would rather have too much than not enough, right? You don't want to have to run out of epoxy and go mixing it up again. That's kind of a pain in the butt. Okay, we have room for a little bit of that Oasis I put there in the middle is kind of strange. We have a little room for this. We have a little bit of the seafoam left. So let me see where I can put it. I think let's put some here over my pour over. See if I can't cover up where I spilled all that resin. Sorry that I'm so focused, you guys. I know that's kind of weird on the video. And where I have a little bit, maybe too much of the blue, I'm just going to go over it with this and just mute it a little bit. I love that Oasis color. It's so pretty. And I love seeing the difference of using these in resin versus acrylic, because everything looks different in resin. Resin like takes the sparkle to another level, you know. So now we're just filling in blanks, making sure the edges have plenty of movement, plenty of coverage. So as we start moving things around, there's one place that needs a little attention. I'm going to fill it in with Milky Way. And we had just enough, which is kind of what I wanted. So yay. So I'm going to put there is still some Glasswings left. Still some Oasis left. So sorry if you can hear my squeaky tumbler turner. All right, come on out. Yikes. Thankfully, Milky Way is kind of a white color, so if I spill it into other places, it's not too big of a deal. And I love the sparkle in it. It's so pretty. I've used Milky Way in blooms before, and it is really beautiful. It adds like a whole bunch of sparkle. It's really fantastic. Okay. Now some of that looks weird, but we're gonna hit it with the heat gun so it won't be too weird. And then Glasswings, we have some room right here. And we have a little bit more room right here. So we'll just help it along. And then kind of the perfect combo. All right, so we have a tiny bit of Glasswings left and a tiny bit of Oasis left, but It's not too bad in the grand scheme of things. I think I'll use some of the Oasis here where I dripped. Trying to see if it will go well anywhere else. I'm a little worried about what I did there. But I think it'll be okay. All right. Now all we have left is a little bit of Glasswings. And I know this is going to be a little bit of a longer video. Resin pours, unless I voice over, they just take a while. So, and sometimes I voice over for that very reason. But now I do have some of these a ways back, way back on my channel. If you have been with me for a while, you've probably seen them. See if I can't just run this further down here from here. Come on, little guy. Just a little bit of the Glasswings so that we can use it. And then that makes what I did here make a little more sense. So I think it'll be good. So there's really no need to pop the bubbles if we're going to use a heat gun, but I like to because then you get rid of these huge bubbles. So I'm going to use the torch it first. There's a lot of them. And then we're going to use the heat gun. The only part that I'm really concerned about is this right here. So I'm going to take my gloves off because they have resin on them, and I don't want to get resin on my heat gun because I've done it before. Since my husband and I both use it, I certainly don't want to make it sticky for him. He had to rescue me once because I got this attachment resined onto the heat gun. So I am gonna do a voiceover for this part, so I'm gonna, because that's just gonna be annoying for you to hear that constantly. So I'm gonna stop this and voice over the other part.
So as I hit it with the heat, I start to notice that it's not set up as much as I would have liked. And there's a couple places where I laid color down and I shouldn't have laid it down the way I did. It really impacted the outcome. But I started to notice when I was blending it that it was over blending, and I really got a lot of muddy areas that I probably could have fixed had I not moved it with the heat. So lessons learned, if it's not set up enough, it will get muddy. So we are going to try to fix that with some of the way we lay down the stones.
All right, so I may work with it a little bit more. Oops, that's too close. It's a little more blended than I like, which is because I use stone coat. And so the epoxy is a little thinner. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to focus without auto-focusing. There we go. So now I need to let it set up for a little bit so I can come back in and put the stones. So some places where it may be over blended, one of the things that I can do with that is I can accent that with some stones. I personally like to use a thicker epoxy because when you move it, it moves with the heat. And the heat, you're heating up the epoxy, which makes it thinner. So if the epoxy is already a little thin, it's blending more than kind of moving in its own lane. So that's probably my fault. I probably should have let it set up a little bit longer. But I like this part. I think this part's really cool. I love the colors. I love this part up here. It's just very blended here, which is okay. So I'm going to maybe use more stones than I normally would to kind of accent some places that maybe got blended a little bit too much. But I think my favorite part is right here. So I'm going to apply some of these stones and see how we do. So let's see if they stay in place. I'm tempted to put a little bit more of what's left of this resin in one spot, but I better not. So let's see if they stay in one place. If they don't, then I'm gonna have to wait a little bit. So one of the places that's kind of strange looking is where this Glasswings color, they're spreading out a little bit, moved into the blue quite a bit, the Oasis. So we're gonna put some stones there and make it look like we did that on purpose. Now the epoxy, we won't worry about those yet. The epoxy kind of acts like a glue. We're still going to do a flood coat most likely to finish the piece off and make sure that they're sealed well. But the epoxy acts like a glue. So where you put the stones, as long as your epoxy is set up enough, it's going to stay there. So I did drop some of the peach stones into the sea foam. So I'm just going to get some tweezers and pull those out, or just move them a little closer. Moving them a little closer won't hurt. Let me get a little baby wipe. Baby wipes work pretty nicely to help get epoxy off of things, including your hands. They're not perfect, they're not like acetone, but they can be really helpful to get epoxy off of things. So, you see how where we're putting these stones really helps accentuate the Glasswings color, and it makes those other colors look kind of like a minor color instead of a major color. And it gives your eye a place to rest, in my opinion, so that if there's too much color in one place, and there is right there, you have a place for contrast and interest. There is some places that got a little like kind of muddy looking, and I still really don't like that way that blue part blew out. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that yet. I keep thinking I can move the gold over there. Maybe I can. Move this. Oh. It helped a little. I don't know if it'll stay. No. But it helped a little. So now I'm going to look at a couple of other places where we can put some of these peach colored stones, but I also want to get an idea where I want to put other colors because I don't want to overdo it, if that makes sense. And I can see all these micro bubbles popping in the resin. So I'm going to put these away for a second. Now I'm going to get the gold ones because I have an idea. So the gold ones, and if you didn't see me make these stones, I will link the video where I made the stones ahead of time. So I show you how to use either alcohol inks or make your own alcohol inks and color your own glass stones. I'm gonna try to cover up the blue streak. Now I should be wearing gloves. I know. You're absolutely right. But it's hard for me to get these little boogers and get a good grip on them with gloves on. So the other thing that you can do, and if I do that, I will probably do it in a separate video, so this one's not too long. The other thing you can do if you have color in the wrong place, like I kind of feel like I do in some of these places, is you can come back over in your second layers and do mix, let's say solar flare. I could mix it in some resin and just put a thin layer over the stones. So that the fun thing about resin is, even if it's not what you want it to be, you can always tweak it. You can always fix it with another layer. There's so much you can do to do that. So if I decide to do that, I'll probably do it in a separate video because I want to get this one out to you guys, and I don't want it to be an hour long.
So this will help a little bit. Oops. I really should be wearing gloves. But this helps cover up that weird part where the gold kind of overlaps the Oasis in kind of a funky way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have these stones kind of clustered up in a spot. And if I have to add more stones, I can later on. I just have to put another layer of epoxy on, and then I can stick them to the top. I don't love it when they get really chunky. I know that that's kind of cute, but for me, it's just not my preference. So I'm going to put some up here, kind of going up to the top so that not all of our stones are going slanted sideways. And then let's see here. So this at least masks that, not perfectly, but it does help. And then, I mean, the stones are glass and they're clear, so you're still going to be able to see through them. But I think it helps a lot. It gives some interest in those areas. The other place we have this happening is over here. So we're going to put some of this gold here so it looks like we did it on purpose. I did not make the stones for the Oasis color. I have some darker blue stones, but I originally intended for that to be used sparingly, and then I made too much of it. So I intended for it to be accents like this with more of the green and the peach, the Glasswings, and the seafoam. So, but the primary reason I wanted to do this is I wanted to see these colors in resin, and I had these Texas shapes already. So this piece will be available for sale eventually after it has a flood coat. And these are fun. You can put like the 3M wall mounts on and just stick this right to the wall. Or you could put a hanging kit in the back. That makes them hang a little bit differently, but it still works. So I'm gonna hyperlapse some of the rest of the stones and just kind of talk you through what I'm doing. So I'll be back. Now I sped this up for obvious reasons. Sorry, I dropped the phone because this is very time consuming, this part. So I just want you to kind of see where I place the stones. I am definitely trying to place them in places that will help mask that muddy area. I'm super disappointed about the way I over blended those with the heat gun. But I know exactly why that happened. So it's still worth sharing with you because that very thing could happen if you were to do a resin pour and over blend. So I'm trying to salvage the piece because I'm not going to just do an entire resin pour over that, but I might highlight a couple of places and add some more Milky Way and see if I can't lighten up some of those muddier areas. I love the kind of the left side of this, but I'm putting in some of those seafoam colored stones in the middle of that muddier area, using probably a lot more stones than I would have normally used in that area. And I like to accent them on some of the edges, toward the top, toward the bottom, and toward kind of the corners. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think they look pretty cool like that. And obviously I keep dropping them in the wrong place, so using my tweezers to take them out. So I sped this up significantly just to try to save you some time, because since the ultimate outcome of this, I like it, but I don't love it. I certainly don't want this to be an exceptionally long video without a result that screams, ta-da, you know. It's sort of like, ooh, okay, you know. So I just wanted to share the process with you anyway. And hopefully the next one I do will come out more with, you know, what I had in mind. So almost done with the stones.
All right, so I'm going to bring you down for a close-up. Let me turn off this other light. I'm not thrilled with the composition just because of the muddiness. I love the colors. I like the colors of the stones. I love those choices. But this kind of tells me either I should have let this set up another 30 minutes or so before I blew it dry, or not blew it dry, before I tried to heat it up with the heat gun, or just use a thicker viscosity for this kind of a project. So I'm taking you off the tripod and bringing you down. So let me zoom you in first. Let me zoom you out. There we go. So here it is. I still like it. It's darker than I wanted. I used too much of the Oasis. I really wanted the Oasis to do like what we have right here is what I had in mind. The parts over here where it overlapped too much is not ideal. The sparkle is amazing. The colors are amazing. So here's kind of a pie view. I still think it's really beautiful. It's just what I envisioned and what happened are different. And I know why, so it's a lesson learned. This is my favorite part right here. There's nice clean lines, but they're not perfectly straight. My second favorite part is probably up here. Oh, I see I have a gold one out of bounds. Just scoot him in with his friends. Now epoxy self-leveling, so where I create those gaps, it's still going to come back into place. But the colors are amazing. Here I obviously used a lot of the stones, a lot more than I normally do. And I think the stones helped some of the muddier places, but they didn't completely eradicate the problem. So let me know what your thoughts are. I have done some of these that have turned out really beautiful in the past, so I know what the problem is. The problem is that the epoxy was just too thin to move around and not get the mud. So, but ultimately, I still like it. I still think it was a good learning experience, and the whole reason I did this is so I could play with these colors in resin and show them to you. So, mission accomplished. Favorite part. Anyway, don't forget about the discount codes in the description box below. Today we used all Colourarte, so 20% off of anything in the Colourarte website using Mandy1120. Don't forget to take advantage of that excellent discount for you. Please like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If you don't like it, hit the thumbs down button twice, because it's okay if you don't like it, but we don't have to announce it. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. Anyway, I appreciate you guys, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.